Water is the driving force of all nature. There's no life without water, but where there is water, life will appear. Water is the soul of the earth. In many ways, we live on the planet water. Everything blue you see here is water, and everything white you see is water vapor or frozen water in the form of snow and ice. Fully 70% of the surface of our planet is water. You are what you drink, and you are 60 to 70% water. Take a look at the amount of water in the list of familiar things on my right and the list of familiar things on my left. But most water in the world is salty or polluted or locked in snow and ice or harboring harmful organisms or full of thousands of chemicals. Even tap water has problems. The water is treated, but most chemicals remain. In terms of treatment, there's coagulation, in which chemicals are put into the water to get dissolved in suspended particles to clump together. There's sedimentation, in which those particles are allowed to settle to the bottom of the tank. There's filtration, in which the water is put through some kind of a filter, maybe sand or coal or membranes or combinations thereof. And there's disinfection, in which chlorine, ozone, UV light, or combinations of those are used to kill anything that might be alive in the water, such as bacteria. Which of those steps have anything to do with getting pollution out of the water? It's sedimentation, where clumps fall to the bottom of the tank, and it's filtration, where the water is put through some kind of a filter. The world is full of chemicals, wastes, and other horrible things that dissolve in water. Your city or town is doing its best to provide you with reasonable drinking water. But consider, they're on a budget. They have massive quantities of water to treat, and they know that most of that water will be used for relatively mundane purposes, such as flushing toilets, watering the lawn, and washing cars. Can you imagine that if you want the small amount of water that you put into your body every day to be as clean and pure as possible, you've got to take care of that yourself. So what's still in the water by the time it gets to your house? Well, thousands of chemicals. So for example, there is arsenic, which is a poison, and there's lead and mercury, which are neurotoxins. There's trihalomethane, or THM, which is what happens when organic matter combines with chlorine, and it causes cancer. And there's per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, which is a very dangerous group of chemicals that's showing up everywhere now. I won't say much about them here because I've done 2 videos on them, but I'll let you know about those 2 videos. Here's a video I made that tells you how PFAS chemicals are just about everywhere now, including in your drinking water, frying pans, and food. Hey yous guys, this one's a role play about spying on meetings where dangerous decisions are made about PFAS chemicals. Watch it after this video. Getting back to chemicals, those are just a few of the thousands of chemicals that could be in your drinking water. And there's microplastics that could be there to the tune of thousands of microparticles per liter, and which get into your blood and organs and can do you great harm. Back in the day, you used to be able to bend down and scoop water out of a creek with your hat if you didn't mind little beaver fever. Too many chemicals to do that now. So how are you supposed to upgrade your drinking water? Is boiling the best way to purify water? Well, it kills organisms, but the pollutants remain and are likely concentrated. So no, it's not the best way to purify water. Is fancy bottled water best? Well, it usually comes in glass bottles, which solves the problem of plastic bottles. It comes from special sources, such as exclusive aquifers. It receives various treatments, ranging from fairly extensive to simply trickling through alpine rocks to undisclosed treatments. Although there are thousands of pollutants, only dozens of tests are done. No guarantees about the quality of the water. Snooty brands have had benzene in it. So no, it's not the best source of purified water. Is typical bottled water best? You know, the water that people drink in the woods and in the gym. It's less expensive, comes from various sources including municipal water supplies. It receives various treatments, sometimes undisclosed. There are no guarantees that the water is pure. Only a few tests are done considering all the pollutants there are. Sometimes inspectors complain about the smell and taste of the water, and it usually comes in plastic bottles. It could contain thousands of microplastic particles. Chemicals can leach from the bottle, and there's the tremendous waste and litter associated with plastic bottles. Only 33% of those bottles are recycled. Okay, well, is it the best water for the woods or gym? No. So, let's investigate 3 ways to upgrade your tap water to avoid harmful chemicals and microplastic and to promote your good health and longevity. There are more than 3 ways to purify water, but I'm going to tell you about 3 ways that are popular, effective, and can be done in the comfort of your own home. One popular method is a filtered pitcher, You put water in the top half of the pitcher, it goes through a filter to the bottom half, and that's it. Serving water is quick and easy. You simply refill the pitcher from your tap and put it in your refrigerator with your other beverages. Are water filtering pitchers best? Well, they use activated carbon and other materials as the filter. You can use them in the comfort of your own home, but they are highly variable in terms of the sort of job they'll do. At the low end, they're less expensive, they remove chlorine, they improve taste, and they remove some chemicals, but they're not the best at purifying water. At the high end, they're more expensive, and the best of them can remove 98% of more than 365 chemicals. So for example, arsenic, lead, mercury, a good job of THMs, a good job of PFAS, and a good job of microplastics. What you're dealing with is just the pitcher and the filter replacement costs. More about costs shortly. Is reverse osmosis water best? Let's imagine for a second we're trying to extract fresh water from seawater. When pressure, spelt with 2 S's, is applied from this side of a semi-permeable membrane, the large molecules and salt are screened out and only the water molecules get through. And that's how reverse osmosis works to get rid of pollutants. So this is what a typical system could look like. There could be 3 vertical filters, perhaps a sediment filter and 2 carbon filters. There's the membrane itself, perhaps in a horizontal cylinder, and there could even be another filter, perhaps dedicated to improving the smell and taste of the water, or perhaps to putting minerals back into the water. Then there's the storage tank and a special tap to gain access to the purified water. So that's what the system could look like in your kitchen, with all the business end of it down below and out of sight. There's the big storage tank on your left. Is reverse osmosis water best? Recall that it works by using a semi-permeable membrane and perhaps other filters. It's an expensive start, but it's very convenient once you've got it set up. On the negative side, it wastes water, in that any water that didn't make it through the membrane goes down the sink. On the positive side, it removes more than 99% of most chemicals. However, it also removes minerals, and some people consider that a bad thing. However, you can get minerals from food and from supplements. It deals with all the chemicals to my side, with the possible exception of THMs. I'll say more about that soon. So you're dealing with the purchase of an RO machine, there's the installation, there are filter costs several times per year, and you have to replace the membrane every few years. I'll give more details about costs soon. This is just a visual reminder that you may need a plumber for installation. Is distilled water best? This is what it would look like as a science experiment. You would heat the salt water or polluted water on the far side of this diagram. The water would turn to steam, but then it would turn back into water again, coming down the cooling tube or condenser, and you would end up with pure water in the flask. Luckily, there's a home version of that looks a lot more like coffee technology and less like a science experiment. Mind you, it costs a bit, and I'll be talking about prices later. Or maybe you choose to rely on a commercial distillation machine, like this one. The water is put into 5-gallon bottles, hopefully made of glass, and delivered to your door by a truck. Or maybe you'd prefer to go and chase it yourself, in which case you might think about getting a little cart, because bottles of water are heavy. Each one is about 45 pounds. Moving water is great exercise. So is distilled water best? Well, it works by evaporating and condensing water, although there could be other filters involved. It's an expensive start if you have to buy a machine, but it's very convenient once it's set up, although slow because it takes a while to boil water. It takes 99% or better of the chemicals out of there. Mind you, it also removes the minerals, but you can replace them with supplements or with food. It does a good job with all the chemicals to my side, with the possible exception of THMs, and I'll say something more about that in a minute. So you'd be looking at the purchasing of a distillation machine, or visiting the store with lots of scurrying, or home delivery, but that's expensive. Well, now it's time to deduce what would be the best way for you to purify your tap water. Notice that I'm not counting spring water in this, because there could be a lot of other stuff in spring water. What I'm going to do is make a chart to summarize everything we've done so far. So down the side, you'll see the different methods: filter pitcher, RO water, or water that's been distilled in some way at home, in the store, or delivered. And across the top, I'll put different categories, such as the convenience, the initial cost, the ongoing cost, or the quality of the water. So looking at the convenience category, well, the filter pitcher is easy. easy all the time. The RO water is easy once installed. Distilled water is slow if you're cooking it up at home. If you have to go and get it, it's heavy. If you have to wait for it, well, you have to wait a while, but then it's heavy and you have to move it around in the house. So the winner of the convenience category has got to be actually a tie. The filter pitcher and the RO water are both easy after a short while at least. In terms of initial cost, a filter pitcher could cost anywhere between $25 and $250. You want a good one, so probably you're towards the top end of that, but shop carefully and read the reviews. In terms of RO water, a system could cost you anywhere from $150 to $1,500, depending on the features of that system. In terms of a distiller for at home, it could cost between $120 and $700 or more, again, depending on the features of that system. In terms of home delivery and fetch it yourself distilled water, there's no particular equipment, maybe a small cart involved, and so they win the category. In terms of ongoing costs, for filter pitchers, the cost of filters are anywhere between $7 and $70 each. Now, thinking about enough water for a year for 2 people for all their drinking and cooking needs, that could cost you $210, in other words, 3 $70 filters, or if you were using the cheaper filters, you might get away with 6 of those for $42. Mind you, if you're thinking about pure water, you're probably thinking about good filters. In terms of RO water, it would cost you $50 to $200 for filters, and every now and again, after a few years, you might need to see a technician. In terms of distilling water at home, you could do that for the cost of electricity, so that could be fairly cheap. Again, in terms of 2 people, drinking and cooking with water all year, it could add up to $500 to $1,000 ballparking it for what you would need to spend to get your water from a store, or even more if you had it delivered. So in terms of what method would win this category, it would be the energy costs of electricity for distilling water at home. So what you would decide to do would depend on whether you found it most important to have convenience, or a low initial cost, or a low ongoing cost. So what we're after is purified water. What about the water quality of these different methods? When it comes to the pitcher, at the low end of this, the filters will take care of taste and take care of a number of chemicals. At the high end, more than 98% of more than 365 chemicals. I'm thinking that most people will want to be at the high end. Something good about that is that at the high end, those filters will take care of VOCs. What are VOCs? They are volatile organic compounds like gasoline, benzene, pesticides, and THMs. You don't want them in your water. Take comfort in the fact that carbon filters, good ones, will take care of them easily. In terms of RO water, well, really good for most chemicals, more than 99%, but find out about VOCs. Why I say that is because VOCs will go straight through a membrane and get into the water you've supposedly purified. But remember that some systems also have carbon filters, and those are the ones you want. With carbon filters in place, no problem about the VOCs. In terms of distilled water, more than 99% for most, but when it comes to VOCs, what happens is the volatile substances will evaporate along with the water and come down in your water, which is supposedly purified. However, some home systems do have carbon filters involved. That's what you want, and commercial people should have. Check into it, find out if they also have carbon filters involved with distilled water. Also, you should be talking to your local water treatment folks, or look them up on the net and find out what kind of VOCs are in your water that you have to filter out. So who wins the water contest? You do, if you decide to use one of these or other methods to purify your water. We care about water in our world, which is after all 70% water. Hey, we're 60 to 70% water, so we should care about the water that goes into our bodies, the contaminants it brings, and the potential effects of that on our health and longevity. An ounce of prevention, a glass of prevention, is worth a pound of cure. Cheers! Why not watch these 2 videos and find out more about how to protect yourself from dangerous PFAS chemicals? I'll put additional information below the video in the area marked More. See you next time.